Hey guys, what's up? Have you guys ever heard of the Emerald tablets? Today I'm going to listen to I think his name is Carson. He is going to break down what these tablets are. It seems like they have some esoteric teachings. As you guys know, we're in this time and age where people are starting to realize that the elites have always tried to hide certain information, right, to the populace. And so today we're going to dive deep into this. I'm absolutely fascinated by anything that has to do with esoteric teachings, guys. If you're not familiar with the word, what that means is basically information teachings that only a few people know about. And so sometimes they call it, the dark secrets. Some people call it the band. Like, for example, let's say the apocryphas, right? These are the Bibles that have been banned from the mainstream Bible. And so I am interested in all these kind of teachings. I actually already ordered some of the books that he's going to talk about here. I already have a bunch in my library here. And so we're going to dive into it. Let's listen to him. Actually, let's read the translation. I mean, not the translation, the definition and the breakdown of it here on Wikipedia. So he says the Emerald tablet has been found in various ancient Arabic works in different versions. The oldest version is found as an appendix in a treatise believed to have been composed in the 9th century, known as the Book of the Secret of Creation. This right here caught my attention, and listen to Carson. I think his name is Billy Carson. Yeah, let's go.
God is a frequency. It's our job to tune in. God is not a man. You hear people say reference God as him, he. They have this illusion that there's this sky daddy with a magic wand floating around granting wishes. That just really, in my research, isn't the case. It's more of a frequency, a divine frequency that is imbued in every living thing in the entire universe. In ancient times, people were more into spirituality. When we got to one of the highest advanced civilizations, which started out in Sumer and then migrated over into the land of Kemet before it became Egypt, the tablets date back about 6,000 to 8,000 years. But those tablets we discovered were recopied from even.
This is so true, guys. If whether you read the Bible, whether you read the Quran, whether you read any kind of spiritual book, one thing you do realize about people of the ancient world is that these people would literally isolate themselves for months and months and months and months. They don't want to talk to no human being, no other human being. They go to the mountains, they travel, and isolate themselves and just meditate and ponder about the universe, why we're here, what we're doing here, what's the purpose for for this worldly life that we live in. So these people were highly spiritual. Nowadays, I mean, our brain, like literally, as I'm making this video, my phone is distracting me with pings, text messages, right? So they didn't have all that back then.
Older tablets, which going back probably about 100 to 200,000 years prior. We're talking about a deep antiquity, a super ancient culture. Even in the Emerald Tablets, when they relocated home base to the land of Kemet, in the Emerald Tablets, there's 36,000-year-old texts. They rebuild the land of Kem out of the mud, which because there was a great flood. So we're talking about ancient knowledge. They said they rebuilt Kem. They didn't build it for the first time. They said they were going to bring it back up to a high level of civilization. So it was already high before the flood. We're talking about tens of thousands of years ago. And so they began to create these mystery schools at dawn of this new era, 36,000 years ago. The gentleman who started this, his name was Thoth, Thoth. And he's known as a wisdom keeper. He's known all over the entire world. And every continent I've been to, there's a depiction of him there. Even in the outback of Australia, they've got him etched into a petroglyph in the rock. He doesn't really have a bird head, but he's depicted as such because the ibis bird depicts bringing darkness to light because the beak is so long, it goes deeper down into mud to bring sustenance. But he ruled over the land of Kemet for 14 or 16,000 years, roughly thereabout, according to the ancient Egyptians. And then he left there and went to Mesoamerica and kickstarted the Teotihuacan civilization in Mexico City. You have Teotihuacan, you have all down throughout Tulum and all the way down to Chichen Itza. That was all his master architectural plan. And Teotihuacan is part of his African name, which is also known as Tahuti. And Teotihuacan in Mexico really means the city of Tahuti that he built out there. So he left there, and that's why the pyramid complex there mirrors the one at Giza in Africa. And so these mystery schools started, and so these mystery schools were to teach the spirituality to adept initiates and to pass it down through verbal teachings. And then When some of these super masters began to pass away or leave or disappear, whatever you want to call it, some of these pyramid priests and temple priests realized the power that this knowledge had and began to alter and remix it. They understood the psychology and the neuroscience behind this and how it could control masses of people. So they started to twist.
Control, guys, is all about control, right? Even nowadays, you guys do realize that every single time we're kept, like secrets is kept from us, is typically because of control or propaganda, whatever they use. Whatever propaganda they use is always about control. It's no longer about money. I mean, it used to probably be, but now it's past that. Like they print the money, who cares about the money? These people, the elites, just want control. Every single little thing they try to sell it to you in history, if you really go back and pay attention, all they care about is control. So this would absolutely make sense as to why they try to they try to corrupt it and then use it for control.
The scripture and twist the words and kind of utilize it for darkness instead of light. And then we're able to then put people into a box and put real controls on them and dominate them and secure them, bringing them food, bringing them sacrifices, bringing them money. The sacrifices were not for God. The sacrifices were so they could eat. If you go to Egypt, you go to all these temples, you'll find the storehouses where all the sacrifices will be put and salted and stored and hung and dried so that these people can have food to eat, because they weren't going to go hunting for anything. They weren't going to grow any crops. So it was all a big scam. So they took his teachings, his spiritual teachings. He's all about seeking the light, evading the darkness, understanding how to raise and be born again through conscious thought. The first baptism that was taught is in the Emerald Tablets. He talks about being baptized via elevated consciousness, being able to rise up to another level and look back to see where you were before. And you'll be born again many times in one lifetime if you continue to ascend. It had nothing to do with splashing water and dumping your head in the pool.
Guys, this is massive because listen, if you really pay close attention, even when you study the mainstream Bible, right? For example, you can see all throughout the Bible, Jesus himself, he keeps talking to his disciples and telling them, "Oh, ye of little faith, or ye of little faith, are you yet without understanding?" And you can tell that the way even his followers was understanding him was very physical instead of spiritual. Every single time, every parable that Jesus uses is more about spiritual things, and these people are thinking physical. So he keep asking them, "Are you yet without understanding? Are you yet without understanding, or ye of little faith?" And so that's exactly what he's breaking down here, where some of the teachings of the Bible have been basically, twisted and corrupt to where people are now just like thinking about it in a physical form. Like for example, the baptism here, where you go in and they put you in. I see some online pastors putting people in freaking bathtubs and baptizing them. Like the teaching itself is more of an esoteric teaching. You have to focus more on the spiritual side, not on the physical side. That makes sense to me.
And all this other kind of stuff. That was also another twist of the information. If you look at the Emerald Tablets, so I wrote this book called Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, which has been a bestseller worldwide for 4 years. It's now, I think, currently number one out of 3 million books in ancient civilizations. In that book, I put the New Testament where Jesus is speaking, and I put both the Atlanteans' words from the Emerald Tablets side by side. And you see that Jesus is literally mimicking what he learned from the ancient mystery schools, which he learned directly from the Egyptian mysteries from both the Atlanteans' teachings. So he's not saying anything new in the New Testament. All those words that were spoken by him were information that he was taught, because the real text is 36,000 years old. And of course, we know the Bible was written between 100 AD to 900 AD, long after the people were long gone. It's just a mimicking of ancient texts, and people began to take spiritual concepts, and a lot of different religions cropped out of his spiritual writings that he wrote in those Emerald Tablets. The story kept getting rewritten. The story did happen originally thousands of years before Jesus was even born. And then the story kept getting copied over and over and over. The true story of Jesus has really never truthfully fully been read. The Sinai Bible is probably closest to the truth, because the Sinai
Getting that Bible already, order it.
Bible was written before the King James Bible and some of the other canonized books. And there's about 14,000 differences between the two. And one of the biggest discrepancies is Jesus was never crucified. Matter of fact, Harvard has a copy of the Book of Jesus' Wife in its seminary library.
Now this is insane to me because, guys, I mean, in the Quran, in the Quran, I'm a Muslim, and it's been, the Quran has been confirming this fact for thousands of years, that Jesus was in fact not crucified, nor was he. So it's funny that the quote unquote Bibles that have been banned from the mainstream Bible actually confirm these facts. Oh wow, okay.
So most likely he got married, had kids, and the Merovingian bloodline most likely is still walking the planet till this very, very day. And so I think that those stories of the ancient, of the ancient cultures having the same story over and over again was just it being copied again from culture to culture and being reread, and the names being slightly changed, but it happened originally thousands of years prior with Horus. I believe that Jesus, his real name is Yeshua. First of all, he was a real person that did exist. I've been to the house where he grew up in Egypt, because if you remember in the Bible, Jesus disappears from the Bible at the age of 12.
And see, guys, I have a book here that says, "Did Jesus exist?" Right, is written by, but I think a guy named Bert Ehrman. And if you really pay attention to why most Christians nowadays believe that Jesus was a myth, is really because of all these stories that have been made, and have been given. He's been given the credit, even though he's never preached such things. There are so many things that people talk about, and you're like, okay, what are you talking about? But it's funny because if you really learn how to read the Bible and separate which book is which, who wrote which book, who's the author of, is it Paul talking, is it somebody from a third person talking, is it in the first person, is it Jesus talking? Most people don't even know how to do this kind of like distinctions, and so they get frustrated, and then over time now people just claiming, you know what, I don't believe none of it, and so he must not exist, he must be a legend. That's where this confusion creates this kind of like phenomenon where people go, you know what, since I'm not understanding it, it's not making sense, you're contradicting yourself. Jesus is saying that he's not God, the Father in heaven is God, but you're telling me he's God. I'm confused. I don't even believe you no more. I don't think he existed. I'm out of the church, type of thing. I'm just summarizing it, but basically that's what's really happening.
Disappears. You don't see him again until he's 32. He's gone. Where does he go? The Gospel of the Holy 12, which was left out of the Bible, has the answer. He goes to Egypt. I've been there. If you go to Coptic Cairo, you can go to the house where Jesus and his mother lived in there, in that area, and they turned it into like a crypt now. So you can go there, you can see where the bed he slept in and everything is still there. And he was learning the Egyptian mysteries. From there, he went all the way up into Tibet to learn Reiki healing and Qigong, and that's been confirmed by the Dalai Lama. And then he left from there and went down into India to learn the mystic arts, teaching reincarnation all the way back to Egypt. And then the Bible picks up, I call my son out of Egypt, and then you see him appear on the back of a donkey in Jerusalem at the age of 32. And that's where the Bible text picks him back up as coming back in. But he was a very spiritual virgin birth. And what's interesting is in the Apocrypha text, the text that was kept out of the Bible, you discover his grandmother, Mary's mother, was also of virgin birth. And if you look at the Sumerian tablets, you discover that these virgin births were not unusual. They were experimenting in these types of in vitro fertilization techniques, where they would take an egg and put it in the womb and take it to term, not their egg, another woman's egg. And they have this whole section in Egypt called the Hathor's temple at Dendera, where they had these birthing centers where they were doing this. So he was a virgin birth, and so was his grandmother was also a virgin birth. They were planted on this timeline for a specific reason by the people who control from behind the scenes, which were they called themselves the ordainers of destiny in the Sumerian tablets. They believed that they had the right to control destinies on this planet. And they would use this crystal tablet to see potential outcomes and futures that they wanted, and they would then pick the one they wanted to coalesce into one real outcome, and they would go ahead putting action behind that to make that reality come true for them. Masters at manifesting. Prior to the flood, the Anunnaki, who are also the Atlanteans, that's the same people. The Atlantean is a civilization. Anunnaki means those who came from heaven to earth. So It's like if we travel to Mars, we wouldn't say, I wouldn't say I'm Billy Carson from Boca Raton, Florida. I would say I'm an Earthling, right? So Anunnaki is that generalized term. Atlantean is the type of civilization they created. Basically, what you find is that before the flood, they didn't even interact with the hominids that were on this planet. They didn't interact with us. Our cousins were here, not Homo sapiens sapiens, but a different version of us was already here. Then they started tinkering because they wanted to create a slave race of people. And then after the flood, they decided to utilize this new tinkered genetically modified version of a Homo sapiens sapien. And they would create leaders of these areas. Like, for example, a pharaoh would be, and the initial pharaohs would be a direct bloodline of one of these Anunnaki people. In other words, it would be half human and half Anunnaki, where the term demigod comes from in Greek and Rome and all of that. And so they would make that liaison, that bloodline liaison between them and the people. As time continued to go by and cultures and the way that the economics and the civilizations and the kingship and everything changed, they began to then, for whatever reason, handpick specific people to do specific things. And they would then create these genetically modified or bloodline people. Yeshua was one of them, who I believe he was half human and half Anunnaki. That's just my personal opinion. I have not read that anywhere, but that's based on what I've researched and what I know from studying ancient cultures. I believe that he was not one. He himself said he's not of this world. I believe that he was a chosen one for whatever the full mission was. And I think the real mission was to bring a certain level of Christ consciousness. It existed before Jesus Christ, that terminology ever came to be. Christ consciousness is ancient. It's super ancient. And it's a certain level of consciousness that a person can get to, this level where they're all knowing, all loving. They're the epitome of service to others and unconditional love for one another.
Now, without getting too much into details, right? I think this idea of Christ consciousness that have always existed, it's not really that, I'm talking about in the esoteric terms of things, right? It's not really something that contradicts Islam by itself, because if you really think about it, even the Quran talks about how there haven't been a generation that God haven't sent, I think, as a messenger or an apostle, right? So all these things, him saying, for example, all this, like, it's the Christ consciousness is super super ancient, is the same way that Muslims go, hey, Islam is not something new. It's been here since the first man, Adam, right? Because it's all Islam means is the submission to the will of God. Basically, that's all the term Muslim means. And so if by definition anybody who reached the highest spiritual status, which is modern day called Christ consciousness, is the ones that are closer to God, we would call them Muslims, I guess, in Arabic. And so that wouldn't contradict this, because it's nothing new. It's absolutely nothing new. All these things, every single, if you read the Quran or the Bible, every single prophet have always taught the same teachings over and over and over. There's not an iota of difference in what they've taught in terms of the principle and the core teachings, which is first and foremost believe in one God, not two in one, not one in three, not four in one, not cats and dogs, not worshiping animals or statues, or thinking that God is a human man or female, right? God is a spiritual being. And so this is not contradicting at all, but super super fascinating, guys. I plan on diving deep into this kind of books.
A real true ascended being. And Jesus never said he was going to return. He said that Christ would return. And he's talking about the consciousness coming back to this planet and raising everyone up to a high level and bringing back a new golden age. That's a level of consciousness where you have this crystallized consciousness where everything that you think of is about, how can I become a problem solver? I'm not a victim. How can I help someone? How can I love this person better? How can I solve problems before they happen? Because a genius will solve problems before they happen. So these people were high-level thinkers. They'll think into the future and think of what all the outcomes could be, and then create solutions before they even need them. That kind of level of thinking, how to heal people, no suppression of medical technology and information and stuff like that, creating a true super Christ civilization. God is a freak.
Boom, guys. Let me know what you think about this. Number one. Number two, have you ever heard of the tablets, the Emerald Tablets before today? What have you read on it? What do you think about it? Let me know. Do you think this is some crazy, crazy, what do they call, those kind of people nowadays, conspiracy theories, right? It's funny that even in ancient times, people that are very, very, what you might call it, very, very spiritually inclined, have always been regarded as weird, strangers, being called certain nicknames in society. So, guys, this is nothing new. If you're a geek when it comes to like this kind of like esoteric teachings, trust me, it is normal that you're being called as somebody who's strange, and somebody who's weird. So be comfortable with it. Leave a comment, like the video, let me know what you think about this, and are you going to get the books, by the way? All right, guys, see you guys in the next video. Boom, boom, boom.